Hey, welcome. Today, we are going to get into one of the most misunderstood and honestly, most important chemicals in your brain, dopamine. It's basically the master key to understanding why we do what we do, our good habits, our bad habits, and everything in between. So let's dive in.
Have you ever felt like this? You get caught in that loop of procrastinating, or you just can't put your phone down and you feel totally stuck? You know you want to break the cycle, but you just can't. Well, it turns out the answer to why that happens is all about how our brain is wired for motivation.
Okay, so first things first, we have to clear up a huge myth about dopamine. Seriously, once you get this one thing straight, everything else we talk about is going to click into place.
Right, so the big misconception is that dopamine is the pleasure chemical. We hear that all the time, but that's not really what it is. The reality is dopamine is about the motivation to go get a reward. It's the wanting, not the liking. It's the chemical that makes you get up to find the cookie, not the chemical that makes the cookie taste good. That's a huge difference.
And if you need proof, check this out. It's a wild experiment. Scientists engineered rats to have no dopamine. Now, if you put food right in their mouths, they'd eat it. But if you put that same food just a tiny bit away, they'd literally starve to death. They had zero drive, zero motivation to get it. That's how powerful dopamine is. Without it, the motivation to survive just vanishes.
So if dopamine is about motivation and wanting things, how does our brain even manage all that? Well, it all comes down to this really simple but brilliant metaphor for what's happening inside our heads. Just imagine there's a big balance scale in your brain, a seesaw, and its one and only goal is to stay perfectly level. That balanced state is called homeostasis, and your brain will fight tooth and nail to keep that scale from tipping too far one way or the other.
So what happens when you do something that feels good? Let's say you scroll social media or have a glass of wine. Boom, the scale tips hard to the side of pleasure. But your brain doesn't just let that happen. To bring it back to level, it calls on these little imaginary gremlins who hop on the pain side of the scale. But here's the kicker. They don't just level it out. They always overdo it. They overshoot, tipping the scale past level and down onto the side of pain.
And that overshoot, that feeling is something every single one of us knows. It's why every high is always followed by some kind of crash.
That feeling is the come down, you know? It's the hangover after a fun night. It's the intense craving for another cookie right after you finish one. It's that, Monday feeling after a great weekend. That's not just in your head. It's a real biological process. It's literally your brain's balance scale being weighed down on the pain side by those overenthusiastic gremlins.
It seems kind of mean, doesn't it? Why on earth would our brains be wired this way? Why does it punish us for feeling good? Why can't it just go back to being level?
Well, it all goes back to evolution. See, for our ancestors who lived in a world where food and resources were scarce, this system was perfect. Tipping the scales to pain after a reward made sure they never got complacent. It made them feel a little deficit, which kept them motivated to go out and hunt, gather, and find more. It was a survival mechanism.
But here's the massive problem. That ancient brain wiring that was built for scarcity is now living in a modern world of crazy abundance. And this is where that perfectly good survival system gets completely hijacked.
See, when you constantly hit the pleasure side with really intense, easy rewards, think junk food, endless social media feeds, potent drugs. Those gremlins on the pain side, they don't just hop on and off anymore. They move in. They set up camp. They build a whole town on the pain side of your scale, weighing it down permanently. Your entire baseline, your sense of what's normal, actually shifts.
And this right here, this is the addicted state. Your new normal is a scale that's already tipped toward pain. So now you need that drug or that behavior, not to feel good, but just to feel normal, just to get back to level. And anytime you're not using, you're living in that painful deficit state, feeling anxious, irritable, restless, and just craving relief.
And listen, this is not just a metaphor. We can actually see this in brain scans. Look at this chart. A healthy brain will say that's operating at 100% dopamine transmission. But look at the addicted brain. Even after 2 full weeks of being clean, it's only at 30%. It's in what's called a chronic dopamine deficit state. It is physically starved for motivation and joy.
And please, don't think for a second this is just about hard drugs. Dr. Anna Lembke, the Stanford psychiatrist whose work we're talking about, she shared her own story of getting addicted to romance novels. That's right, romance novels. It shows that this brain mechanism, this pleasure-pain balance, applies to anything that gives us a potent, repeatable hit of pleasure.
Okay, so that all sounds pretty bleak, but here's the big question. Can we fix it?
Can we get those gremlins to pack up and go home? And the answer, thankfully, is a resounding yes. We just have to be intentional about rebalancing our own scales.
Okay, step 1 is to give your brain a break. A 30-day dopamine fast, which really just means abstaining from one specific high dopamine behavior, is usually the minimum time your brain needs to start clearing out those gremlins and finding its way back to a level baseline. Now, fair warning, you'll probably feel worse before you feel better, but sticking it out is absolutely critical.
But there's also a more proactive way to manage this whole system. It comes down to choosing your path. You've got the easy way, chasing direct pleasure like sugar or your phone. That always ends in a dopamine crash. But then there's the hard way. Things with a bit of upfront effort or pain, like exercise or even an ice bath. What happens then?
Well, when you deliberately press on the pain side of the scale, something amazing happens. To restore balance, your gremlins have to hop over to the pleasure side. It's a total hack. This gives you a rise in dopamine that's more gradual and lasts for hours. And most importantly, it comes with no crash. It is the secret to sustainable, healthy, good feelings.
So, I want to leave you with this. Let's try to reframe the question we ask ourselves every day. Instead of what easy pleasure can I grab right now, what if we asked, what hard thing could I do today? What's one thing that takes a little effort that could gently but powerfully start tipping your own scales back toward balance?